Okay, we are live. Let me just quickly check that Facebook is running okay. Looks to be doing its thing. Okay.
I will confirm.
Let me just hang on, go live.
Yeah, I was just about to say it hasn't been pressed yet.
Okay. Okay, there you go. We are live. Okay, guys, thanks so much for joining me. It's Jackie M for another session of Malaysian Ingredients Made Easy. This week we are doing coconut water, Malaysian coconut water. Okay, so you can see this here. Keep your eyes out for Malaysian coconut water. And it says, it's so dark in here, I freaking can't read this. Okay, but it says, yeah, coconut water, original coconut water. Okay, but guys, thanks so much for joining me. Say hello, let me know where you're watching from. And if it's your first time tuning in, what we do every week is I go live featuring a particular Malaysian ingredient, and I showcase 2 different ways to use it in your cooking. And today I'm actually doing 3 recipes, kind of, because one of you guys asked a question by email during the day, and I'm gonna basically demonstrate it here. Okay, so Paul, thanks for joining me. For those of you who don't know, Paul is based in South Africa. He's my partner in crime. He is the co-founder of Masters of Malaysian Cuisine. So Paul is the sort of person that I can kind of like bounce off some thoughts about this, and we're going to bring Paul back later on and basically answer some of your questions. But Paul, first of all, do you ever eat jellies or agar-agar or anything like that? Do you know the difference between the two?
I do. Well, okay, I don't know the difference between the two. I know agar-agar it's a synthetic powder, whereas like jelly is gelatin. So if you're vegan, you use agar-agar. Well, it's not synthetic, but I mean, it's like it's the seaweed one, right?
Yeah, seaweed.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the third one is called konjaku. Okay, konjaku is something that we're going to cover because someone asked about it. And by the way, if you came here, guys, you would have gotten an email telling you that I have Noah here in the background today. Noah is my child who's got Down syndrome. He's nonverbal and he can't communicate very effectively. So he does his own thing, but hopefully he's not too disruptive. But if he is, you know why. Okay, but everyone say hello.
That's why he'll be disruptive. That's why he
doesn't need it. You know, I'm going to end up with so much jelly at the end of this session. I wouldn't know what to do with it. And the other thing we're going to make as well is a prawn curry, but cooked with coconut water instead of coconut milk, and also coconut meat as well. We're going to talk a little bit more about coconut meat in a bit as well. Okay, so let's get started. So thanks, Paul, for hopping on, and we are going to get going with my first session. Okay, like I said, guys, we're going to be doing jelly, but vegan. Okay, and to make it vegan, we're going to use agar-agar. Agar-agar is actually what we grew up eating most of the time in Malaysia. How's agar-agar different to jelly? Okay, jelly is non-vegan, and jelly's texture is a little bit softer. Okay, agar-agar tends to have that kind of like it's almost crunchy, if you know what I mean, but it's still jelly form. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use Malaysian coconut water to make some agar-agar. And in the agar-agar, we're going to use, we're going to add some fruit, okay? And some of the fruits that I've got here are, I've got some jackfruit, okay? So this is actually frozen jackfruit. We're going to slice it up and add some of this. This is coconut meat. And here in Australia, I always talk about how lucky we are in Australia that we can buy a lot of stuff that maybe you might find a little bit harder to find in other parts of the Western world, okay? But this is coconut meat or coconut flesh that you can buy frozen. Have a look in the freezer section of your Asian grocery store next time you go shopping and you just need to soften it up a little bit. Other fruits I've got a handful of grapes here. Okay, everybody can get grapes. Okay, basically any kind of fruit you want. You want strawberries, what do you call it? Kiwi fruit and all that. Go for your life. Okay, and then I also have some canned pineapple. Hey, Poon is saying hello from Malaysia. Thanks for tuning in, by the way. And hit me up if you've got any questions. Okay. Okay, so this is just good old canned pineapple. I think everyone can get a hold of this. Okay, but again, like I said, any kind of fruit you can get a hold of that you like, you can use that. Yeah, you don't have to use all of it, of course. You can just play around with it. So it's going to be this side. And first of all, we are going to make agar-agar. Okay, now I have to admit, for those of you who don't know me, my specialty is Malaysian hawker food, okay? And also within that context, my specialty is actually savory hawker food, like things like char kway teow and roti canai and all that sort of stuff, like satay and like chicken rice and all that, right? So I don't actually do a lot of sweet stuff. So until a few months ago, if you ask me about how to make agar-agar, I'll be like, yeah, I remember my mom doing it when she was, when we were kids and stuff like that, but it's not something I make for my business per se, okay? So when I ran my Malaysian, when I ran my Malaysian business here in Sydney, our sweet offering were quite limited. We did like gula melaka, the sago pudding that you saw me make a few sessions ago, and also things like onde and that sort of stuff, right? Let me just change the layout for you quickly before I get too carried away. And also, like I said, if you have any suggestions on other ways to use, on other ways to use coconut water, post it in the comments, and I'll try and capture them for the notes that I'll be sending out to everyone, okay, and the recipes as well. And by the way, if you haven't already signed up for the recipes, make sure you do at malaysianchefs.com/recipes, and I'll get Paul to post the link up on screen in a little bit, okay, because if you want to make sure you don't miss any of the recipes, you need to sign up. Okay, so first of all, agar-agar. Good morning, Annie. Thanks for tuning in. Now, the easiest way with agar-agar, the good old days, you would buy the stringy bits, right? And then you got to boil them until they dissolve. And I always used to ask my mom, because even though I didn't sell agar-agar of any sort, right? I was thinking, making it for yourself, how much do you actually use? It seemed a little bit confusing. And also just boiling it, soaking it seemed to take a long time. Nowadays, you can actually buy agar-agar in powder form, okay? And funnily enough, I actually, during the whole lockdown thing, I did a lot of online ordering. Surprisingly, places like Woolies and all these online supermarkets here in Australia, they don't really carry this, or certainly, not, to any great extent anyway. But this is like an Asian agar-agar powder. When I finally managed to come out of isolation or the lockdown was over or whatever, I walked into an Asian grocery store and they had stacks and stacks of these, okay? These are like in little sachets in powder form, and it doesn't look like there's a lot in it, like a couple of tablespoons or so, but you only need a little bit anyway. So next time you go shopping for agar-agar, get the powder form, easiest way to do it, okay? Now, so let's get started. And what you want to do with agar-agar, how much you use is like, depending on how kind of like firm you want it, right? It varies, but generally it seems like most people use about 1 tablespoon to about 1 liter of water. Okay, we're making a much smaller quantity today. And guess what? I forgot to grab all my spoons. Give me a second. Okay, so we're going to just get 1 teaspoon. Okay, and I'm going to use coconut water, okay? Hey, Jane, how you doing? Jane asked a question about konjac, and we're going to add this to the thing, right? So, Jane, we're going to actually showcase using konjac for part of this demo, okay? Just to show how it's done, and it's basically the same thing. But how is konjac different to agar-agar? Okay, konjac is also vegan, and konjac is Japanese, as you can tell from the words. And what you want to do now, you want to stir this. You know what? I had so much time and I forgot to grab all my spoons. Okay, yeah. So konjac is Japanese and it's vegan, it's plant-based. So what you want to do is you want to mix the agar with the coconut water. I probably could use more coconut. Unfortunately, I only have a small amount of coconut water. This is all used up, and this is the last less than half a thing. Okay, so I'm going to cheat a little bit and add some plain water to this. Okay, and then you're going to turn this on, and it's going to boil it. Okay, and you want to add a little bit of sugar. Okay, I'm gonna be very conservative, just like about 2 teaspoons of sugar here. Just stir it. And this is the simplest, easiest way to do like jelly. Okay, so it's great for kids. If you've got kids at home and they love jelly, right? They can make this themselves, essentially. But how's Konjac different? Hey, Annette, how you doing? Great to have you tune in. Hey, Fauzia, how are you? Baby Noah is, I don't know if you can hear that crunchy noise. That's Noah making it, by the way. Noah's going crap, 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 but like just kind of like making weird noises with his mouth. And hopefully he doesn't get too disruptive. Konjac and Agar-Agar are different. Because remember how I said that Agar-Agar is kind of like almost crunchy, like you bite into it, there's not so much give, right? Konjac is more chewy. Okay, so it's almost like you need to work a little bit to chew it. It really depends on like which way you lean in terms of personal preference. Some people say they prefer the chewy texture of Konjac. Some people prefer the Agar-Agar crunchiness. All right. And Rose, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. Rose is in Sydney, Australia. But guys, yeah, say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. Okay. So all we're doing is just bringing this to a boil, to simmer until everything's dissolved. Okay. If you like it sweet, you can add a little bit sweeter. And you can add, no, I'm not going to do that. And the other thing about Konjac is people make like that 3D jelly art with it, right? And if you use coconut water, I'm told with Konjac, it produces a very nice, crystal clear visual with it, okay, instead of looking cloudy sort of thing, okay. So now this is simmering away. It's pretty much done. I just want to thicken it up slightly, okay. So like I said, next time you go shopping, look for powdered agar-agar. But you know, if you were like me and you were desperately seeking agar-agar, you would think in this day and age that, you know, it would be right where all the jelly and stuff like that are located, all the jelly powders. But no, not here in my part of Sydney. I couldn't find it at my local Western supermarkets, ironically. Okay, so as far as the fruit, let us just kind of like chop them up a little bit. Okay, I mentioned the coconut meat. This is fantastic if you can get a hold of it. If not, don't worry, right? So this is what they look like. You can just cut them into thin strips if you like. And then we've got jackfruit. Got pineapple. Okay, that's done. Okay, that's totally simmered. And you can use any kind of molds. What I've been using is just these actually jars, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make a couple. But first of all, I'm just going to put a thin layer here, and it will set by itself. You know, you don't necessarily need to stick it in the fridge or anything like that. Could hear him. Noe, you're going to keep, Noe? No, I'm going to keep quiet a little bit, okay? Not too noisy. Mama's cooking. Okay, so we're going to put a little bit here. This is optional. And the reason why I just want to put a little small layer here first is because I wanted to semi-set before I throw in the fruit so that they don't sink to the bottom, okay? But again, kind of optional. Now, if you've got strawberries, this would be beautiful. I don't, and I did want to run out and buy strawberries, especially for this. So we're just gonna get some grapes. I've got some spare grapes sitting in my fridge. So we're just gonna throw a few here. And you saw my pineapple ring. And you know what? If you've got those like ice cube molds, right, they'll be perfect as well. But I don't, because I have zero spare space in my freezer for ice cube trays or anything like that. Okay, but you can actually make like make these using ice cube molds. Okay, so we've got this. And let's bring it closer. And it's just going to set by itself slowly, okay? So I'm just going to you can see it's kind of like floating a little bit. Okay, sort of. And you know what? If you want to make a coconut layer like the Asians do, right? For those of you who are Malaysian or I think Southeast Asian, you might know what I'm talking about. If you make like layered jelly with like a clear layer and then a coconut like white layer and all that, you can do that. So you can actually add some coconut cream or coconut milk in here and cook up another layer. Okay, but you want to vary the amount of agar powder in it because I think that you want it a little bit softer. Okay. Okay, so let's just pour a little bit more in here. This is very hot. Okay, just gonna put more in. But this is great fun for kids, I'd imagine, right? Because you get to have like a really cool, easy, delicious afternoon snack sort of thing by just boiling some agar with some sugar and some coconut water. And voila. So we're going to put this aside. And konjac. Okay, I have never used konjac. Okay, like I said at the start, even agar is a little bit. I've done it like I've made a few hundred mini serves of agar-agar dessert for a catering gig recently. But beyond that, I don't ask me about catering, by the way, guys. I only do it like for special events. Okay, so that's that there. You want to let it like set, and it will set on its own. Now, konjac, I found this in my pantry. This is konjac powder, but this is not a konjac powder per se, but so much as it is a konjac mix. Okay, so it's already got the sugar in it. It's got the konjac. It's got actually also like some flavoring, which I didn't know when I bought this. Okay, so it's not. That's why it looks like yellow. It's meant to be mango flavored konjac. Okay, so we're going to cook this up, and I'm going to do a comparison for how it looks at the end. Okay, but typically if you can get konjac powder, you would be using the same amount as the agar powder, which is just like, like a few grams worth of it. Okay, but this, because it's got all the other stuff in it, you're supposed to just pour the whole lot in. So we're going to do that. And it comes with a little sachet of like some kind of acid, some of you might be more familiar with konjac. Anyway, okay, so we're going to do this, but like I said, I only have like less than a full pack of Malaysian coconut water left. So we're not going to use Malaysian coconut water, we're just going to use straight water, but it will be the same thing. Okay, it's the same theory, but if you were using Malaysian coconut water, you would in fact be producing a nicer, like clearer jelly. Okay, so we put this in, we're going to put the water in here. How much have I got? Okay. See, this is yellow, like I said, because it's flavored, but we're still going to add fruit in it anyway. A bit more. I'm going to bring this to a boil. We're going to stir this and bring it to a boil, okay? And by the way, guys, I'm using my Lenovo Legion laptop to do my streaming with this. Okay, so I also give a shout out to Lenovo for all my laptops that I use for broadcasting. Otherwise, you won't be able to watch me. Okay, Poon says my family loves konjac because of the chewy texture. Konjac is very firm jelly. It's nice and chewy. Okay, see you go. You guys know it much better than I do, right? I don't remember if I've ever eaten konjac, but nowadays a lot of people who are like trying to go the low carb route, right? You can actually buy noodles made from konjac. Okay, so sometimes if you look at the refrigerated section of health food stores in particular, but I guess you can probably find it everywhere nowadays. They actually contain like they actually have like noodles that are labeled like carb-free noodles, and they're actually konjac noodles, and they look clear. Okay, I have tried them once, and they seem a little bit. The texture is not the same as eating like proper noodles, but if you're on a special diet, then you do what you gotta do. Okay, so this is a big amount. I don't know who's gonna eat this all up, but this is what we're going to do. We're just gonna cook this up, and again, I'm gonna get more fruit prepared for this. I'm gonna use this, right? And by the way, the coconut meat. I don't know, like some of you who live, like Annie Thompson lives in the UK. I don't know if you have any trouble getting a hold of coconut meat in your Asian grocery store. It's great, addition to your kind of like, your Asian ingredient range if you can, because it's unique and it's nice. But also we're going to use this in our next savory dish. Okay, so make sure you stick around to have a look. So what I do with this jelly, like I said, you can do a separate layer that's made using like coconut cream with a little bit of agar in it to help kind of like set it over the top, and that will give you almost like a kueh talam kind of vibe. Except it's jelly. Kueh talam, for those of you who don't know, is kind of like a steamed custard, okay? But this will be like a jelly custard. Let me just keep stirring this, okay? So like I said, this already has all the sugar and all the flavoring in it. You don't need to add any sugar to it, okay? So we're just gonna cook it up. But in the meantime, I'm actually going, because there's so much of this here, I'm going to use this silicone mold for it, okay? So it won't set in time for this session, but I'll show you via photos on social media so you can have a look to see what they look like, okay? And just a quick mention, if you want to, I do these lives here, but then I also post the results afterwards on Instagram and in my Facebook group called Jackie M's Malaysian Street Food Kitchen. Noe, shush, please. Called Jackie M's Malaysian Street Food Kitchen. You can look it up and just join as a free group. And that way you get to engage with everyone else who loves Malaysian food and share your food photos and check out the ones that are the outcome of the ones that I do here anyway. Okay, so look me up on Instagram, which is just Jackie M Sydney, or look me up on Jackie M's Malaysian Street Food Kitchen. And Paul says, I remember seeing a packet in Chinatown. Then when I went down store, it was $80 for a tiny bag. $80 is South African $80 is not the same as like, it's not. It's worse than it sounds, I think. And also the other thing is just to kind of, I might bring Paul back on screen. For those of you who missed our first session, let me just Australian $80. Are you serious?
Serious.
Are you serious? No. How big was the packet?
Half a kilogram? A kilogram? I'm not sure.
No way. Oh, maybe it was pure konjac powder.
Maybe. I don't know. I just remember seeing konjac written on the label, okay. And then I saw the price and I just looked away.
And anyone verify that konjac costs that much? Anyone uses it? So yeah, he has adjusted it. Okay, so I'm just stirring this and bringing this to a boil. But I just realized it's going to run out of gas in a second. But yeah, Paul was telling everyone the other day, okay, we Asians, when we think of coconut juice, coconut water, right? We think of like, well, certainly I do anyway, growing up in Malaysia, drinking coconut water, which we call coconut juice, at roadside stalls, right? The same guy who sells the air tebu, like the sugarcane water, they'll sell coconut juice. But the thing is, we drink it as a drink, right? It's a refreshing drink. But growing up as a kid, it might have changed nowadays, but they used to add syrup to it as a matter of course, okay? But Paul, here, as a Westerner, coconut water didn't really take off till like the last 10 years or so, right?
I'd say, yeah, somewhere there.
Yeah,
15
and
years.
kind of like, because coconut water really, certainly the way, the way it's been marketed over here anyway, it's marketed as what, Paul?
You mean like in Australia?
Yeah, or in South Africa.
Oh, South Africa. Yeah, it's like a health food, like almost like an electrolyte drink for sportsmen and stuff like that.
Yeah. Because you were showing me something that you drink, or was supplement?
I was gonna say, like, it's funny because I didn't realize this until we'd hopped off. But one of the supplements I use, it's like, like nutrient replenishment when you're like doing cardiovascular exercise, had coconut water in it. Yeah, I was gonna go grab it, but trust me, it's in it.
Yeah. So I mean, that's why coconut water is popular in the West, right? Because it's marketed as a healthy drink, which it is. But in Malaysia, we use it for we just drink it. We don't even think of the health aspect of it.
I was going to say, the thing for me is what you do is you go find something in the East, which is commonplace. It's really cheap. And then you just take it to the West, and all of a sudden, the health benefits that have always been there. Now you just highlight that, and then you can charge like 10 times the price. If you want a successful business, that's what you do.
Big time. Okay, so let me just pull Paul off camera.
Okay,
and then, back. Oops, sorry. Okay, so here we go. This is what this looks like. It's all completely dissolved, right? But it is yellow because it's flavored, which I didn't realize when I bought it. So we're going to put the fruit down here. And I'm going to, to spread it out. I'm going to do it over here so that I don't have to move it too much and end up like disrupting it. Okay, so hopefully this turns out, like I said, my first time using this. Oops, I got way more than I can fit in here. Okay, so let's see how it turns out, okay? And you know what the hack with this is, in my opinion, is cooking up some coconut cream separately, right? What you want to do, you cook up some coconut cream separately, add a pinch of salt, and also a little bit of sugar, and then you end up with coconut sauce, okay? Which you can use to serve the jellies with, if you like. It's almost like, I don't know if you remember, like growing up eating jelly as a kid. You used to actually use, evaporated milk in it. Like you kind of like smother it with evaporated milk. But if you want something that's more coconutty and also vegan, use coconut milk, okay? Like Malaysian coconut milk, like the one that I've been showing you in all these sessions, okay? So now, with that out of the way, I just need to set. What we're going to do now is a prawn curry, okay? I mentioned in my email that I'm going to talk a little bit about the prawn curry that I grew up loving. This, I think even most Malaysians would not be familiar with, because I think it's something that was unique to the restaurant that we used to visit growing up in Seremban. It's one of those outdoor restaurants, those outdoor Chinese restaurants that where the food is quite cheap sort of thing, and you might go there for special occasions and eat, seafood or whatever at non-exorbitant prices, okay? So that was the kind of vibe of that restaurant. But there's this particular dish that I grew up loving that my parents would order as a matter of course, or certainly during a particular time in our life anyway, right? It was this prawn, I don't even know what to call it, because I don't know like how they ordered it, what it was called or whatever. But what they used to order was this prawn dish. You know what? I forgot to put this in. Okay. Hopefully this doesn't mess it up too much, but this little sachet came with the konjac. I'm going to put it in, stir it in, and we are going to just mix it through, okay? Like I said, hopefully it doesn't make them make too much of a difference. But I just wanted to make this so that I can actually take photos after the fact and show you guys, and maybe shoot a video to compare and contrast the difference between the texture of konjac and regular jelly. regular agar-agar. Okay, so that's that. And yeah, so back to the prawns. We used to order this particular dish that came out served in a coconut, right? In a young coconut, from memory. I'm pretty sure it was a young coconut. And like, you know, you kind of get a coconut served at your table and you open up the lid and there would be this prawn, all these big giant prawns simmering inside, right? And they would have prawn meat in them. And it was like a light curry. It was very yellow, which makes me think it's like, you know, maybe just turmeric, or I'm going to use curry powder this time, okay? And it was just delicious, okay? And it was lemongrassy, and it wasn't like heavy, like, you know, it wasn't like rich and creamy like that prawn and pineapple curry that I did in one of the previous Malaysian ingredients made easy sessions, which is also absolutely delicious, but the vibe is completely different. The prawn and pineapple curry is very rich and coconut creamy. This one is very light, okay, but still delicious. And the secret ingredient to me is the coconut water. So we're going to do that now. And by the way I peel prawns when I use it in my business is I leave the heads intact, okay? So you get a whole prawn like this. These are tiger prawns, by the way. You just kind of like go for the middle bit, right? And you just kind of like remove the shell in the middle, but you leave the prawn tip and the head's intact, okay? The prawn tip here, just the little bits at the end, and you leave the head on. And the reason is partly for aesthetic purposes, because it makes your prawns look that much bigger, but also because we Asians actually like to chew on prawn heads, okay? So there you go. And if you do want to take the prawn heads off, right, what I suggest you do is you save them. I save all my prawn shells, okay? That's why my freezers never have room for like ice cubes and stuff like that. I save all the prawn shells in my freezer, and then every few weeks, I will end up with like so many boxes of prawn shells and prawn heads in my fridge that what I do is I take them all out, empty them into a pan bigger than this, because this one fit all the prawn shells I have. And then I fry it in oil with lots of garlic. And then I add seasoning to it, a little bit of sugar and some chicken powder. If you're not big on the whole chicken powder MSG thing, you can just use salt. Fry it till it's all red and oily and delicious and garlicky. And then I throw it into a blender and blend it into a paste, okay? And that's how you end up with the prawn paste that I then use to make prawn noodle soup, okay? So nowadays, when I make prawn noodle soup, my prawn soup looks very intense, very strong colored, okay? But it tastes absolutely delicious, okay? So these are the prawns. What you want to do is just kind of devein them, just kind of cut them down the middle, okay? Just split them up, and that's how they look, okay? There's actually no vein in these ones, which is really cool, okay? But it also kind of makes them look pretty because they open up like butterflies, okay? So there you go. Right. The small packet that comes together with konjac produces a chewy texture. Oh, thanks for letting me know. See, there you go. I knew you guys would know more about konjac than I do, because I've never used it. Right. So can you actually leave it out in that case, or there you go. Let's cut this up. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to cook the prawn curry thinger, and we are going to use just very, very basic, what we call rempah. Rempah is kind of like the spice mix, and the spice mix we're using is just onion, garlic, and lemongrass, okay? So I've got the garlic. Remember, I buy fresh garlic, fresh peeled garlic cloves actually, and then I mince them in my blender in a big batch, and then I store it in my fridge. This is onion, minced onion, okay? So I peel a few big onions and mince them. This is lemongrass. I actually buy them frozen, okay? So not all ingredients, but some ingredients are worth like saving a bit of money on by buying the frozen varieties, okay? Just give me 2 seconds. I need my frying finger. believe how settled Noah is, by the way. Okay, so you can, but it'll affect the texture. Okay. I thought it might affect how it sets, but yeah, as long as it's just the texture, it's okay. So I've got the onion, okay, minced onion. I'm gonna add it in. You notice I haven't added the oil yet because, like I said, for those of you who are just tuning in for the first time, this for preventing, like when you fry your spice paste, preventing it from spitting everywhere. Okay, all the recipe books, all the techniques will tell you heat up the oil and add all these wet ingredients. And as soon as you do, you know, oil and water don't mix. It just kind of like starts spitting everywhere. Okay, and I used to tolerate it, but I discovered if I use a non-stick pan and fry it without the oil first, then add the oil after, like most of the water is evaporated, it helps. Okay, so that's kind of like my little hack nowadays. Fish curry powder. This is also a Malaysian product. Okay, you can find this at Asian grocery stores, mostly here in Australia, at least anyway. And by the way, if you're wondering where to buy all these ingredients, I'll get Paul to pull up the links online. Here in Australia, most Asian grocery stores, you should be able to find all these easily, okay? But if you're in New Zealand, okay, or if you're here in Sydney, you want especially the more niche stuff, okay? Look up Malaysian groceries in punch bowls. They basically specialize in Malaysian ingredients, okay? So some things that you might not find in your stock standard Asian grocery store, you should be able to find at Malaysian groceries in punch bowl. Okay, so now I've just added the oil here. And also in New Zealand, look up e-packs.co.nz. Fish curry powder is widely available in India also. Yes, indeed. Yeah, right. Indian grocery stores here in Sydney, well, you'll be able to find that particular fish curry powder in, okay? Now, not all Asian grocery stores, at least here in Sydney anyway, are created equal in the sense that, I mean, not that they're inferior or whatever, but they do kind of like emphasize different like ingredients, different cuisine types, depending on who they cater to, okay? So I've been to grocery stores that on the outside, they look like any Asian grocery store, but when you go inside, the ingredients they sell cater to a particular cuisine type, like say from China or something. I'm just adding the prawns in from China or something. And Chinese cuisine is quite different to Malaysian cuisine. I know I'm stating the obvious. It's not actually necessarily that obvious, right? Because there are a lot of Chinese in Malaysia. I'm Chinese myself. Malaysian cuisine has a lot of Chinese influence. But if you want something that's very niche Malaysian, right? Look for the grocery stores that cater to Southeast Asians. Okay, Southeast Asians like the Malaysians, the Singaporeans, Indonesians, the Thais, the Vietnamese, and to a lesser extent the Filipinos. Okay, and also all the other Southeast Asian countries. Okay, so I've just added this in. No, you don't touch, baby. By the way, guys, like I said, if you miss my, it's trying to help. Okay, now you want to go sit down? I'm going to sit down. You help Mama later, okay? If you're just tuning in now or you don't get my emails, Noah's my child who's got Down syndrome. He's nonverbal and he is here at home with me tonight. So he wants to help. Okay, so I've got the lemongrass. Now, if you were using fresh lemongrass, you want to just bruise it. Okay, you bruise it by just smacking the thick side of it, the bulb, with like your Chinese chopper, or you use like a mallet to just kind of like pound it, right? Just to crush it a bit, and that will allow it to release the flavors more easily. But he wants to help. But I'm using defrosted frozen lemongrass, so they're already really soft, okay? So I don't have to worry so much about it. So what you want to do now, and Noah's just helping, is you want to just kind of saute this lightly, okay? And we're going to add some seasoning. Now, remember, coconut water has a little bit of sweetness to it, okay? Usually when I make a curry like this, I would add a pinch of sugar or whatever. But because we're using coconut water, we don't have to, okay? And the other thing is we're going to add the coconut meat. Okay, this is optional, but I like it. Okay, so if you can get a hold of like these frozen packs of coconut meat next time you go shopping at your Asian grocery store, then try adding it in, okay? And if you caught my previous session, you will know I mentioned with the coconut meat, right? These are soft and gelatinous. These are from young coconut, okay? So they're nice and they're soft and they're crunchy, okay? From old coconut, the coconut meat is really hard, okay? And that's actually what they use to make coconut milk with. So we're gonna add the coconut water. Like I say, it's got this own little bit of sweetness to it. So I don't have to add any sweetener to this. And finally, the seasoning. I'll say I'm gonna cheat and just use a little bit of chicken powder, okay? Like I said, if you're more of a purist, I'm the founder of Masters of Malaysian Cuisine, and some of our chefs are like some of the best in the world, okay? So usually they go live. No, I can't wait to try the fruit jelly. Oh, I don't know about that. It's very fussy with its food. Yeah, but some of my chefs will not use chicken powder, okay? I'm not that much of a purist. I like my chicken powder and I use it quite a lot in my cooking, okay? But it's entirely up to you. If you want, you can just add a little bit of salt to this, okay? Okay, so we're just simmering this. And let me just taste test this quickly. It's very sweet, actually. I love it. Wow. The flavor's amazing. I'm going to add a little bit of salt too, okay? Just to cut through some of the sweetness. And just a little bit more chicken powder, okay? Now, the version that I grew up knowing is more yellow in color, right? So if you prefer, you can add some turmeric to this to make it more yellow, or maybe you want to replace the curry powder with turmeric, okay? Because it wasn't like a traditional curry flavored thing, okay? It was more like a, if you can imagine like opening a coconut and seeing this kind of like just simmering away, and it goes fantastic with just plain boiled rice, okay? So let's just taste this finally. Okay, it's fantastic. So it's very, very easy. Some coconut meat if you can find it, but otherwise optional. If you want, you can add like pineapple too if you like, right? So it's almost like a dieter's version of prawn curry without kind of compromising on the coconut flavor. Okay, let me just get a bowl and serve this up. Okay. And I won't bother with the lemongrass because the stems are too long to fit into this little bowl. Trying to get the last bit of coconut meat in here. Okay. Okay, so there you go. Just sprinkle some spring onions, some coriander over it. Okay, beautifully colored thinger. You'll be surprised. I also cannot find konjaku jelly here. The konjaku jelly I have from Sydney. Wow. Oh, you poor thing. Prawn heads are really tasty to chew on. There you go. I agree. I use Baba's curry powder as well. Yes, Baba's, any kind of Malaysian curry powder. If you go shopping for Malaysian ingredients, any kind of Malaysian curry powder, you're pretty much, guaranteed, to have a beautiful curry, okay? When I first came to Australia, things have probably changed a little bit, right? The only curry powder you can find at your supermarket shelves were Clives of India, right? Okay, so this is the jelly. Look, it's set completely, okay? It's quite tender, okay? And if you like, it's not completely set yet, but when it does, you can actually tip it out, okay, and serve it up. But also, like I said, you can serve this just with a spoon by this on its own, or you can pour some sweetened coconut cream, coconut sauce over it, okay? But add a little pinch of salt to it if you like as well. And finally, I think I'm not sure if I mentioned, but someone did ask about like how long coconut milk will keep for, okay? So let me bring myself back on camera. Okay, is this the right camera? Okay, this will do. Okay, cool. I'm doing this in the dark, so let me just grab my coconut milk. Okay, Malaysian coconut milk, right? Someone was asking, once you open it, how long will it keep for? Okay, it's a good question because they don't actually last that long in the fridge. You really want to use them up within the same week. If you want to keep them a little bit longer, just bring them to a boil, okay? So like, say if you use like half of this and the rest of it, just boil it up, bring it up to heat, and then pour it into a container and store it. It will keep a little bit longer, but you can also freeze this, especially if you're using it in curries and all that. It doesn't matter that it's a little bit, it might be a little bit curdled, okay? Rose Richard, I have never tried to add coconut meat. Try it, give it a shot. It's nice, but all of us growing up in Malaysia, I think, like, won't deny that when you drink coconut juice, right, the coconut meat is really nice, okay? I've never cooked it coconut water. I'm sure it'll give a natural sweetness. It does give a natural sweetness, Jane, yeah. Coconut water, I think most Australians associate with like just drinking them straight, right? But there are a lot of different ways you can use. You can obviously use them in smoothies and all that sort of stuff, right? But if you're using it in your cooking, it does add a natural sweetness in your food, and it's also healthy, So next time you think about just using straight out water, maybe just like, think what you can substitute with some coconut water, right? If you're cooking for your family, if you're making soups like chicken broth and all that sort of stuff, instead of using water to make your chicken soup stock, try adding coconut water, right? Because the flavor is very subtle. It's not so strong that will completely change your chicken soup flavor, okay? But yeah, I think it's really versatile that way. So next week, let me bring Paul back on screen. Paul? Okay, so guys, next week we are going to be tackling ingredient number 4, which is kalulut, stingless bee honey. Okay, so those of you tuning in, if you have never, let me just actually, do I have it here? Let me just quickly show you. Hang on. Baby, we'll get it in a second, okay? We'll show you. Okay. Okay, so stingless bee honey. Okay, this is what it looks like in Australia. And unfortunately, I have to admit, you guys in Europe may struggle to find this, okay? But this is Malaysia's first superfood is classed as, literally officially classed as a superfood. How is stingless bee honey different from regular honey? Stingless bee honey is much more prized, okay? It's very rare. It's completely packed with a lot of goodness, right? People actually just take 1 teaspoon a day and that's enough to keep them chugging along, okay? And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this next week, and I'm hoping to be able to bring the distributors, the importers of this Malaysian stingless bee honey on camera with me to talk a little bit more about it. But what are we going to do with stingless bee honey? Now, I have to point out that the flavor is quite different from regular honey. Regular honey tends to be just straight out sweet. Stingless bee honey has a kind of sweet and sour flavor to it. Okay, so what are we going to do with it? We're going to think about it, and you're going to have to tune in next week to find out. Okay, so again, next week we're going to go live at on Monday at 3 p.m. my time, which is Sydney time, or 12 p.m. Malaysia, and on Thursday at the same time as this, which is 7 p.m. Sydney time and 4 p.m. Malaysia. And I freeze my unfrozen. Thanks, Prakash. Thanks so much for tuning in. Good to actually see the odd Twitch person tune in still. Twitch used to be my live streaming home, but I haven't been there for a while. And he says, I freeze my unfinished coconut milk and cream. There you go. That's a good idea as well. But like I said, my freezer is so tiny. I never have enough room in my freezer to be able to do much with it. Do we have any other questions? No, but otherwise, again, last word, don't forget, if you haven't already signed up for the recipes for this series, we are going to be sending it out to all of you guys, okay? Directly in your inbox once I've had time to kind of get up and put it all together. So we have a whole ton of recipes so far. So make sure you keep your eyes for it. And also, if you already signed up, I want to actually just mention that we also do a monthly recipe magazine that also gets in your inbox as well. And I have literally just completed the one for this month. Okay, it's a special Ramadan edition, and it contains 15 Ramadan faster breaking recipes. It doesn't mean you have to celebrate Ramadan to gain from these recipes. They're just kind of like the typical recipes that are appropriate for people who are fasting and breaking fast. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. So Paul, you're going to give some of these a try?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I haven't done a lot with agar-agar, so I'm curious to give that a try.
Yeah, it's so easy, right? It's just a matter of dissolving it and then boiling it and then just kind of
Done.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Thanks again so much, and thanks Paul for hopping on. And we shall see you on Monday at, like I said, usual time, same place. Okay. Thanks, guys. See you later.
Bye.